If you've ever tried to dry wood the old-fashioned way, by letting it air dry, then you know it can sometimes take years to do so. And I don't know about you, but I can't wait that long. Now I have heard that a solar kiln can speed up this process to just a few weeks. And that would be awesome. But I've also heard that they can be quite expensive. So let's see if we can build a reasonably priced solar kiln that can meet our needs and hopefully yours. To help try and save a little bit of time, I looked at what others have asked about them in the past, and I kept coming across two main questions. How big does it have to be? And where's the best place to put one of these things? And if you look up these questions online, you're gonna get people from all different directions telling you to build different types of things with different types of materials, and it just can be a little overwhelming. So for this project, I'm going to use materials I already have on hand or stuff I could easily buy at my local store. And in the process of this build, if you have any suggestions, please list those in the comments. You'll help out a ton of people who watch this video. I also plan on having an update video in the future, and I just might use your suggestion in that video. So list away. So to answer the first question, how big of a kiln do we need? Well, we can cut lumber up to 21 inches wide and most of the time less than 8 feet. So let's work with that. And to answer the second question, where's the best place to put it? Well, it needs the most sun. And well, in our backyard here, well, it's mostly shaded. So I'm thinking maybe if I can convince the wife to let me put it in the front yard. Let's give that a shot. Hey honey, can I build a solar kiln in the front yard?
No.
Okay. Hey honey, what if I put it next to the driveway?
Still no.
Hey honey, what if I...
Babe, just not in the front yard.
Okay. She said not the front yard. And doesn't this fence technically make this now the backyard? Well, I have an idea, and it's right over there. Just on the other side of our fence is this poured concrete pad. Apparently, long before we purchased this house, there used to be a deck on the back, but it has long been since torn down. But the pad is still here. So I'm thinking I might be able to utilize this for our build. Now, the best thing about it is it's already here. I don't have to spend money on a concrete. And if you don't have a concrete pad, you could always put this build on your driveway, maybe put down some rocks or just some boards and make sure everything is nice and level. But in this case, we're gonna try and utilize this and just don't tell the wife. Here's a rough sketch of the design I would like to use. The width is about 8 feet wide. The depth, this will be about 30 inches and that should give us plenty of airflow. The angle here for the roof, we're gonna do that at about a 45-degree angle, which should be good for the summer and winter. And for the supports in the frame below for the floor, underneath the actual floor, I'm going to have these pieces going side to side so we'll have plenty of support for the stickers and the wood that'll be sitting on top. Now I'm going to first start off with the frame of the floor. And to do that, I'm going to make sure I use pressure treated 2x4s. If you do this, make sure you find the label that says foreground contact. That way it doesn't prematurely rot on you. To save you a little bit of time, I went ahead and assembled the bottom frame and the 4 uprights. Let me show you what I did. Standing on the front side, this front board and this back board are both 87 inches. These inner boards are at 91 inches and the sideboard over here is at 30 inches. On the front legs, I have them at 41 inches at the highest point, and this is a 45-degree angle so we can get the best angle for the sun. The back legs are set at 72.5 inches at the highest point, and they also have a 45-degree angle. For most of these connections, I just use some 4-inch long screws going all the way through the boards into the end grain. On the front and back boards where they connected into the uprights, I end up using some pocket screws. These are not the strongest, but once I have the outside pieces in place, these should be nice and strong. On the top of the front and back, I needed 2 strips that are 45-degree angle all the way across to give support. So I ripped a 2x4 down on my table saw, and I'm going to attach it to an additional 2x4 to give it plenty of strength, but give us that 45-degree angle all the way down. Just like that. And there is what the front and back look like after a little bit of hassle of getting that up there. It can be a challenge trying to do it with one person, but it's doable. And once again, we use pocket screws on the sides to connect the pieces together. This isn't the strongest as is, but once the outside sheets are on, this right here will be plenty strong. Next up, we're going to cut these supports for the roof. We need 5 of them, and on each end will be 45 degrees. And once they're in place, they'll look very similar to this. And just like some of the other connection points, I used pocket screws for this, but I realized I made an error. This is too high, it'll actually poke out the other side, but that's okay. I have 1 here and I have more up top. On the boards that I only had 1 pocket screw going in, I decided to go back and add an additional screw on the opposite side, making sure it's at an angle so it doesn't poke through. The structure as it is pretty sturdy, but since it's gonna be out in the elements, heat, cold, I'm gonna add another board across here, and that should give it some more strength side to side, less likely for it to ever try and collapse, and it'll give it a little bit lower of a level so the doors don't have to be nearly as big. And after getting that back brace on, decided to put some side winds on as well. And this is now really sturdy. I'm not sure if you can hear it out there yet, but the rain has started coming down, so I had to quickly move the solar kiln under this barn so I don't get soaking wet in the process. Now that the frame is complete, I'm gonna be using OSB for the floor and for the walls. OSB is not necessarily the best material to use for an outside structure, but right now it's inexpensive and I plan on painting this, so it should be okay for my needs. If you ever work with OSB, you'll notice there's a smooth side and a rough side. I've always been told that the smooth side needs to face outward because it has a little bit more water protection. Now I don't plan on putting insulation on the inside of my kiln except for the bottom, because you have that the temperature from the ground can be a lot cooler than what'll be inside the kiln here, and I want to put a little barrier in between that just to separate it out so there's not so much heat loss. Now for the door, it's almost a full sheet of OSB that actually slides back and forth. I have 2x4s on the bottom with some grooves and one big one at the top to keep the rain out, and watch. You go either way. Now for the front top, I'm using a clear polycarbonate. It's a little dirty right now, so it doesn't look fully clear, but it is. On the ends over here, that has these little end pieces, almost end caps or whatever you want to call them, that stop the airflow, and that way it'll stay nice and warm inside. To help reduce water intrusion, I made sure there was an overhang on both sides and on the front and back. To help control heat on those really hot days, I made a couple of vents on the back top portion. I could have made these vents out of just some pieces of wood, but I had some extra pieces of polycarbonate that fit just perfectly over these holes that I made, so I decided to make it nice and see-through. I decided not to put any extra vents in the bottom for cooling, because I believe there's enough gap around this door that'll be plenty. But if not, I can always add those vents later. These vents are so cool, I decided to show you one more time. No pun intended. For air circulation within the kiln, I bought two different types of solar fans because I wasn't sure which one would work the best. In each case, they use these oversized computer fans and a small panel, and if one of them works a lot better than the other, I'll just upgrade. To attach the fans and solar panels, I just did a 2x4 on the inside of the kiln, and since the 2x4 was already at the correct angle, I just attached the fan directly to it. And for the solar panels, I just used some zip ties to hold it in place because I might move it in the future. And this is what it looks like on the inside of this kiln. It kind of reminds me of an old chicken coop I built many, many years ago. Now, of course, this kiln still needs a nice coating of some exterior paint so it doesn't absorb water, or in many cases you might be able to get by if you have a thick coating of urethane on top of it, maybe like a spar urethane. In any case, it needs that before this sits out in the weather. But since this is basically complete, the sun's back out, let me drag it out into the yard and you can get a much better view. Easier said than done. Let me give you a full 360 view of this. Currently does not have the door on it because it's much lighter to move around that way. That light should be going through there really nice. Once we get around to the back, oh yeah, you can see the sun really coming through. That should heat up really nicely. I'll probably have to use those vents after all. Overall, this is pretty cool. If you think of any ideas or anything I could do to upgrade this or just make improvements overall, please let me know. Put that in the comments. I would love to hear them. And I almost forgot, just in case you were wondering, the total cost to build this kiln was just under $300. And I think that's a pretty good deal, because if I was to take several slabs up to a professional kiln drying place, it'd cost me that much anyway. So I should be able to get my money back after drying my first big load of lumber.